The grand chamber of the Galactic Concordat stretched so wide that its far walls disappeared into shadow. 1,000 species filled the amphitheater seats, their forms ranging from beings of pure light to creatures that breathed methane and lived in pressurized tanks. At the center of it all stood Ambassador Ji Woo, a human woman in a simple gray uniform. Facing the elevated throne where Imperator Qualvex sat in all his ancient glory, the Velthara leader's skin shimmered like polished chrome. His 4 eyes studied Ji Woo with the same detached interest one might give to an insect. When he spoke, his voice echoed through translation devices worn by every delegate. "The matter is settled," Qualvex declared. "Humanity will surrender all military vessels within 1 standard year. The Concordat will provide protection to your colonies. This is our gift to you." Ji Woo kept her expression neutral, though her hands trembled slightly at her sides. She had expected this, but hearing it made official still felt like a punch to the gut. "Imperator, with respect, humanity has never threatened the Concordat. Our ships defend only our own territory. Why must we, because we say so?" The interruption came from Counselor Dren, whose seat floated just below the Imperator's throne. "Your species has been part of this Concordat for barely 4 decades. The Velthara Empire has guided the galaxy for 6,000 years. We know what is best. Your primitive warships are unnecessary, provocative. They will be dismantled." Around the chamber, other species murmured agreement. Some looked uncomfortable, but none spoke in humanity's defense. Ji Woo felt the weight of their silence like a stone in her chest. "And if we refuse?" she asked quietly. Qualvex's expression didn't change. "Then we will take corrective measures. For your own good, of course. We do not wish to harm our younger siblings, but neither will we tolerate defiance." The session ended. Ji Woo walked out of the chamber with her small delegation, their footsteps echoing in the corridor. Nobody spoke until they reached their shuttle. "They're going to attack us," said her aide, a young man named Dongha, who handled intelligence gathering. "I've been monitoring their secure channels. This isn't about protection. They're planning something." Ji Woo nodded slowly. "Send an encrypted message to Earth. Tell Admiral Haijin that we need to talk. Immediately." Far from the political theater of the Concordat's capital world, Captain Tae Min stood on the bridge of the reconnaissance vessel Horizon's Edge, studying a holographic display with growing concern. His ship had been conducting routine surveys along the outer rim of human space, mapping asteroid fields and checking on remote mining operations. But 3 days ago, they detected something unusual. "Play it again," Tae Min ordered. The sensor officer, Lieutenant Young Ho, brought up the recording. It showed a region of empty space about 20 light years from the nearest human colony. Except it wasn't empty. For just 3 seconds, their long-range scanners had picked up energy signatures consistent with weapons testing. "The frequency matches Velthara plasma cannons," Young Ho explained. "But the target signatures, they're configured to simulate human ship hulls. Our shield frequencies, our armor composition." Tae Min felt his stomach tighten. "They're practicing how to destroy our ships." "That's what it looks like, sir. How long has this been going on?" Young Ho pulled up additional data. "I went back through our sensor logs from the past 6 months. If I filter for these specific patterns, at least a dozen separate test events. Maybe more that we missed." Tae Min turned to his communications officer. "Get me a priority channel to Fleet Command. Admiral Haijin needs to see this." Back on Earth, in the underground command center beneath Seoul, Admiral Haijin studied the reports coming in from 2 different sources. Ji Woo's message from the Concordat, Tae Min's sensor data from the Rim. She was a tall woman with gray streaks in her black hair, and her eyes held the hard wisdom of someone who'd fought in the Awe. Colony wars before humanity ever met another intelligent species. They're not even hiding it well, she said to the officers, gathered around the conference table. Qualvex wants us to know we're being threatened. He thinks we'll roll over out of fear. Maybe we should consider compliance, suggested General Park, who commanded Earth's planetary defenses. We've only been in space for 100 years. The Velthara have had faster-than-light travel for millennia. Their fleet could sterilize our colonies in days. If we surrender our ships, they'll do it anyway, Hyjin replied. Just slower. More politely. They'll take our resources, our technology, our freedom. And we'll smile, can thank them, because we'll be too weak to resist. She stood and walked to the window, looking out at the city above. Millions of people going about their lives, unaware that their entire species stood at a crossroads. There's a third option, she said quietly. We comply publicly. Apologize for our aggression. Ask for more time to properly decommission our fleet. And while they're congratulating themselves on taming the primitive humans, we prepare. Prepare how? Ask Commander Sang-Woo, the youngest officer present. We can't outbuild them. We can't outgun them. Hyjin turned back to face them. No, but we can outthink them. The Velthara have fought the same way for thousands of years. Rigid formations. Predictable tactics. They've never faced an enemy that fights dirty, fights desperate, fights with nothing to lose. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. They've never fought humans. Over the next few weeks, the plan took shape. Ambassador Jiwoo would request an extension, playing the role of the reasonable diplomat, trying to convince her stubborn military. Earth's government would publicly debate compliance, creating the appearance of internal division. And quietly, very quietly, Admiral Hyjin would begin moving assets. The Kepler Veil became the center of humanity's hidden gambit. The dense nebula scrambled sensors and made navigation dangerous, which was exactly why the Velthara never bothered patrolling it. Human ships began disappearing from their official posts, reported as decommissioned, but actually slipping into the nebula under stealth. Commander Sang-Woo took charge of the most audacious part of the plan. Deep within the Kepler Veil, in a region where the stellar fog was thickest, construction began on a shipyard. Not just any shipyard, but one designed to build vessels using every trick humanity had learned from studying. Concordat Technology. Chief Engineer Nari led the design teams. She was a genius who'd reverse-engineered Velthara engine technology within months of humanity's first contact with it. Now she turned that analytical mind toward weapons and defenses. They think in straight lines, she explained to her team. Their sensors expect certain patterns. Their weapons target based on specific signatures. What if we built ships that don't fit those patterns? The result was vessels that looked wrong to Velthara sensors. Ships that could mimic asteroids or debris fields. Weapons that didn't behave like any the Concordat had encountered. Humanity's entire bloody history of warfare. All those centuries of nations fighting nations with limited resources and desperate innovation became their blueprint. Captain Taemin's Horizon's Edge continued its patrol missions, but now with a secondary purpose. Every time they encountered Concordat vessels, they recorded everything. Scanner frequencies, communication protocols, flight patterns. All of it went into a growing database that human tacticians studied obsessively. 3 months before the deadline, the Velthara made their first move. The human colony on Arcturus 7, home to 15,000 civilians, went dark. When Taemin arrived to investigate, he found Velthara peacekeepers occupying the settlement. We're here to help with the transition, their commander explained smoothly. Surely you don't object to us protecting your citizens? Taemin clenched his jaw but said nothing. The message was clear. The Velthara were done waiting. He reported back to Admiral Hyjin. They're testing us, seeing if we'll fight over one colony. We won't, Haijin replied. Not yet, but soon. Ambassador Ji Woo delivered humanity's official response to the Concordat, requesting just 6 more months to complete the decommissioning process. Imperator Qualvex granted it with magnanimous condescension. Certain that he'd broken humanity's spirit, he had no idea that in the darkness of the Kepler Veil, thousands of human engineers worked around the clock. That Admiral Haijin slept only 4 hours a night, coordinating a military buildup unlike anything the galaxy had seen. That Captain Tae Min and dozens of other commanders were training their crews in tactics that would have seemed insane to the Concordat's rigid military doctrine. The countdown had begun, and humanity was done asking for permission to exist. The Kepler Veil looked like a bruise in space, purple and dark blue clouds of stellar gas stretching across dozens of light years. Inside the deepest part of the nebula, where visibility dropped to nearly zero and sensors became almost useless, Commander Sang-woo watched the skeletal frame of humanity's first dreadnought take shape. The shipyard itself was a marvel of desperate engineering. Dozens of construction platforms floated in a carefully choreographed dance, their positions updated constantly to account for the nebula's shifting currents. Workers in sealed suits moved like ants across the growing vessel, welding hull plates and installing systems that didn't appear in any official human military database. How long until she's operational? Sang-woo asked. The foreman, a grizzled veteran named Tae-sung, who'd built colony ships before the Concordat ever made contact. 2 months if everything goes perfectly, Tae-sung replied. 3 months realistically. 4 if the Velthara decide to poke around. We don't have 4 months. Then I'll tell the laws of physics to hurry up, sir. Sang-woo couldn't help but smile. Even facing the end of everything, humans kept their sense of humor. It was possibly their most dangerous weapon. He moved through the shipyard's command station, reviewing progress reports from other construction sites scattered throughout the Kepler Veil. Not just warships, but carriers, fast attack vessels, support craft. Every design incorporated lessons learned from studying the Concordat. Every vessel was built to fight in ways the galaxy had never seen. Back on Earth, Chief Engineer Nari stood in a laboratory that officially didn't exist, watching test footage on a dozen screens simultaneously. On one screen, a missile tracked a moving target through a series of evasive maneuvers. On another, a point defense laser tracked and destroyed incoming projectiles with inhuman precision. A third showed a ship's stealth system bending sensor beams around its hull like water around a rock. The problem with the Velthara, Nari explained to her assistant, a young engineer named Baera, is that they're victims of their own success. They've been the dominant military power for so long that they've stopped innovating. Their weapons are powerful, but predictable. Their defenses are strong, but inflexible. She pulled up a schematic of a Velthara battleship. Look at this. Beautiful ship. Terrifying firepower. But it's designed to fight other Concordat vessels in formal battle lines. Big ship shoots at other big ship until one explodes. They've been doing it the same way for 1,000 years. So we don't fight them the same way, Biora said. Exactly. We swarm. We use missiles that think and adapt. We hit them from angles they don't expect. We use the environment against them. Nari's eyes gleamed with the intensity of someone who'd found a puzzle she could actually solve. And we make every single shot count because we can't afford to waste anything. The Ghost Protocol was her proudest achievement. Traditional stealth systems tried to absorb or deflect sensor beams. Nari's approach was different. Her system analyzed incoming sensor pulses in real time and generated return signals that made human ships look like space debris or natural phenomena. To Velthara scanners, a human destroyer might appear as a small asteroid or a patch of ionized gas. It won't hold up under sustained scrutiny, she admitted. But in the chaos of battle, it'll buy us precious seconds. And seconds win fights. While engineers built ships and designed weapons, Specialist Dong Ha fought a different kind of war. His battlefield was information, and his weapons were code in careful social engineering. He'd spent months building a network of contacts throughout the Concordat. Some were sympathetic to humanity. Others simply hated the Velthara. A few were just in it for money. Dong Ha didn't care about their motivations as long as they provided intelligence. Got something, said his partner, a data analyst named Hay-1. She pulled up an intercepted communication on her screen. Velthara Military Logistics. They're staging a fleet at the Threshold Station. 400 ships. Maybe more. Dong Ha read the details, his expression growing grim. That's not a defensive posture. That's an invasion force. When? Timeline suggests within 3 months. Right around when our extension expires. He forwarded the intelligence to Admiral Haijin's secure channel. They're planning to hit us the moment we're supposed to be defenseless. Hey, one leaned back in her chair. Then it's good we won't be defenseless. If everything works. If the ships are ready. If our tactics actually work against real Velthara forces instead of simulations. Dong Ha rubbed his eyes. That's a lot of ifs. You know what humans are good at? Hay-1 asked. Beating the odds. It's kind of our thing. Captain Taemin's Horizon's Edge conducted its patrols as usual, maintaining the fiction that humanity was preparing to comply with the Concordat's demands. But every mission now served a dual purpose. When they passed near Velthara territory, passive sensors recorded everything. Fleet movements, communication patterns, the locations of supply depots and repair stations. Taemin and his crew built a map of Velthara military infrastructure. That became more detailed with each passing. Weak, they're concentrating forces at Threshold. Station, his sensor officer Young Ho reported during one patrol. I count at least 300 capital ships. And the numbers are growing. They're not even trying to hide it, Taemin observed. Qualvex wants us to know what's coming. Lieutenant Yoon-ji, his tactical officer, studied the data. It's a psychological tactic. Make the threat so obvious and overwhelming that we collapse before the first shot is fired. Might work on some species, Taemin said. But they're forgetting something. Humans evolved as prey animals. We spent 1 million years surviving things bigger and stronger than us. Predators that could smell us from miles away, that could run faster, that had claws and fangs while we only had rocks and sticks. He smiled grimly. We got pretty good at killing things that thought they were invincible. Back at Fleet Command, Admiral Haijin coordinated everything from her underground bunker. Sleep was a luxury she couldn't afford. Every day brought new challenges, new problems that needed solutions. A shipyard in the Kepler Vale reported delays due to equipment failures. She authorized the transfer of spare parts from the official fleet, replacing them with falsified maintenance records. A training squadron needed more time to master the new combat doctrines. She found them the time by delaying other operations. A security breach threatened to expose the whole operation. Dong Ha's team traced and eliminated the threat within hours. It was like juggling chainsaws while walking a tightrope. One mistake, one slip, and everything would come crashing down. You should rest, suggested her aide, Colonel Minseo, who'd been with her since the colony wars. I'll rest when this is over, Haijin replied, studying the deployment schedules on her screens. How many ships do we have operational in the Vale? As of this morning, 2,312. Another 800 in various stages of completion. 3,000 ships, Haijin murmured. against the entire Velthara Empire. Ancestors help us. The Velthara think we're decommissioning our fleet. They think we have maybe 200 operational vessels left, scattered across our colonies. When we reveal what we've actually been doing, it'll either be the greatest military surprise in galactic history, or it'll be our extinction. Hai-Jin pulled up the tactical simulations her strategists had been running. Run the scenarios again. All of them. I want to know every possible way this can go wrong. Ambassador Ji Wu played her role perfectly. In public sessions of the Concordat, she appeared sad but resigned, a diplomat whose government had accepted the inevitable. She gave speeches about cooperation and the wisdom of the elder species. She smiled when Imperator Corvex praised humanity's maturity in accepting the Concordat's guidance in private. She wanted to scream. "They're so arrogant," she told Dong Ha during one of their encrypted communications. "Qualvex actually patted me on the head yesterday, like I was a child who'd finally learned her lesson." "Let him be arrogant," Dong Ha replied. "Arrogance breeds mistakes. I hope you're right, because if this goes wrong, I'll be the face of humanity's betrayal. The ambassador who lied to the entire galaxy. No, you'll be the ambassador who bought humanity the time it needed to survive. History will remember the difference." With 6 weeks left before the deadline, the first completed warship emerged from the Kepler Vale's construction yards. Commander Sang-Woo watched as the massive vessel, christened the Indomitable, fired up its engines for the first time. The ship was a monster, bristling with weapons that combined human innovation with reverse-engineered Concordat technology. Captain Tae Min transferred his command to the Indomitable, leaving Horizon's Edge to continue its patrol duties under a new captain. Standing on the bridge of the dreadnought felt different from his old reconnaissance vessel. This wasn't a ship built for exploration and scientific survey. This was a ship built for one purpose: war. "All systems showing green," reported the engineering officer. "Ghost protocol is active and functioning. We're reading as a large debris field on our own sensors. Weapons status: all batteries loaded and ready. Missile tubes armed. Point defense systems online." Tae Min took a deep breath. "Then I guess we're ready to shake some stars." Around him, ships continued to gather in the nebula. Destroyers and cruisers joined the Indomitable. Carrier groups launched their first wings of fighters. Fast attack ships that could accelerate like missiles practiced hit-and-run tactics against simulated targets. 3,000 ships hiding in the darkness. 3,000 ships that officially didn't exist. 3,000 ships waiting for the order to reveal themselves to a galaxy that thought humanity was beaten. Admiral Hai-Jin watched the readiness reports roll in and allowed herself one moment of pride. Her people had done the impossible. They'd built a fleet in secret. They'd innovated their way past technological disadvantages. They'd prepared for a war that everyone said they couldn't win. Whether they would actually win remained to be seen. But they would fight, and they would make the Velthara regret the day they tried to command humanity. The countdown clock in. Admiral Hai-Jin's command center showed 72 hours. 3 days until the deadline. 3 days until humanity was supposed to complete its surrender. Instead, she was watching real-time feeds from dozens of sources, all painting the same grim picture. The Velthara Armada had positioned itself at the border of human space. 437 warships, according to the latest count. They hung there like a sword over humanity's neck, waiting for the order to fall. "They're not subtle," Colonel Minacio observed, standing beside her. "Counselor Dren wants us to see them. Wants us to understand what's coming if we don't comply." Hai-Jin studied the formation. It was classic Velthara doctrine. Heavy battleships at the center, cruisers arranged in perfect geometric patterns around them. Destroyers forming an outer screen. Beautiful, imposing, predictable. What's the status of our forces in the Kepler Vale? She asked. Final ships are completing checks now. Captain Tae-min reports the fleet is ready to deploy on your order. Hai-jin nodded slowly. The moment was approaching. Soon there would be no more hiding, no more pretending. Soon the galaxy would see what humanity had been building in the darkness. Her communication console chimed. Ambassador Ji Woo's face appeared on the screen as she looked exhausted. Behind her, the ornate walls of the Concordat embassy were visible. Admiral, Ji Woo said quietly, Imperator Qualvex wants an answer. He's giving us one final chance to comply peacefully. He wants humanity's unconditional surrender broadcast across all channels within 12 hours. And if we refuse? Counselor Dren is authorized to begin what they're calling enforcement actions. They'll start with the outer colonies, disable our infrastructure, occupy our settlements. They say it'll be bloodless if we cooperate. Ji Woo's expression hardened. But we both know what occupation looks like. Hai-jin closed her eyes for a moment. This was it. The point of no return. Once she gave the order, humanity would be committed to a path that could only end in victory or extinction. Tell them we need 24 hours to coordinate the surrender with all our colonies. Buy us that much time. They might not accept the delay. Then tell Qualvex that humanity wants to do this properly. That we're grateful for the Concordat's patience. Appeal to his ego. Ji Woo smiled grimly. His ego is the one thing we have in unlimited supply. I'll make it work. The transmission ended. Hai-jin turned to her staff. Send the alert to all our commanders. Operation Defiance begins in 24 hours. Everyone moves into position. And somebody get me Captain Tae-min. Far from Earth, at the edges of human territory, Lieutenant Young-ho stood at his post aboard Station Freedom. The outpost was small, just 200 crew members, but it monitored a critical junction where 3 shipping lanes converged. It was also the closest human installation to the Valthara Armada. Young-ho had been transferred here 2 weeks ago, and he'd known immediately what it meant. Station Freedom was bait. When the Valthara came, they would hit here first. And his job was to make sure humanity's response looked convincing. Sir, his communications officer called out. We're getting massive energy spikes from the Valthara fleet. They're powering up weapons. Young-ho checked his screens. The Armada was moving. Not all of it, just a strike force. 20 ships breaking formation and heading straight for Station Freedom. Sound general quarters, he ordered calmly. Activate all defensive systems. Send a priority transmission to Fleet Command. And someone get me a channel to the approaching vessels. His crew moved with practiced efficiency. Alarms blared. Crew members rushed to battle stations. Defensive shields came online, though everyone knew they wouldn't last long against 20 Valthara warships. The communication channel opened. Counselor Dren's face appeared, his chrome-like features arranged in what might have been contempt. Station Freedom. You are in violation of Concordat peace enforcement protocols, Dren stated in a bored tone. Power down your weapons and shields. Surrender your facility. You have 5 minutes to comply. Young-ho straightened his uniform. Counselor, our deadline hasn't expired. We still have 24 hours to coordinate our surrender. This attack violates the agreed timeline. The timeline is irrelevant. Your species has demonstrated insufficient commitment to compliance. We will now take corrective action. Dren leaned forward slightly. I strongly suggest you surrender. The Concordat has no wish to harm you. But we will if necessary. And I strongly suggest you return to your fleet, Young-ho replied. Because if you fire on this station, you're going to regret it. Dren actually laughed. You have 200 crew members and defensive weapons designed for pirates. I have 20 warships. What exactly will I regret? Starting a war you can't win. The channel closed. Young Ho looked around at his crew, seeing fear but also determination on their faces. They were young, most of them, barely out of training. They joined the military expecting to defend colonies from accidents and natural disasters, not to face down an empire. "All right, people," he said. "We all know what's going to happen, but we're going to make it count. Every second we hold is another second for humanity to prepare. So let's give them hell." The Velthara ships opened fire 3 minutes later. Station Freedom's shields flared bright as plasma bolts hammered into them. The station shook. Alarms shrieked. Young Ho held onto his console as the deck tilted under him. "Return fire," he ordered. "All weapons." Station Freedom was never meant to fight capital ships, but its crew tried anyway. Missiles launched, most of them getting shot down by Velthara point defenses. The few that got through barely scratched the enemy's shields. It was like throwing pebbles at a mountain. But Young Ho's people kept fighting, kept firing, kept broadcasting their defiance across every channel. The shields failed after 8 minutes. Velthara plasma bolts tore into the station's hull. Sections began venting atmosphere. The crew fought fires and sealed bulkheads, buying precious seconds. Young Ho activated the station-wide channel. "All hands, this is the lieutenant. It's been an honor serving with you. Tell them we stood. Tell them we fought. Tell them we're just the beginning." The final barrage struck the station's reactor. For a brief moment, Station Freedom burned brighter than the nearby sun. Then there was only debris and silence. The transmission reached Earth minutes later. Admiral Hai-Jin watched the footage of Station Freedom's last stand, her jaw clenched so tight it ached. Around her, the command center had gone silent. 200 crew members. 200 lives spent to buy humanity a few hours. "They'll pay for this," Colonel Minzio said quietly. "Yes," Hai-Jin agreed. "They will." She activated the fleet-wide channel. Every human ship, every commander, every crew member would hear what she was about to say. "This is Admiral Hai-Jin to all forces. Station Freedom has fallen. Lieutenant Young Ho and his entire crew gave their lives defending it. The Velthara have shown us their idea of peace. Now we'll show them ours." She paused, letting her words sink in. Operation Defiance is now active. All ships move to attack positions. Captain Tae Min, take the Indomitable and the Vanguard out of the nebula. It's time the galaxy saw what humanity has been building. In the Kepler Vale, Captain Tae Min received the order with something almost like relief. The waiting was over. Now came the part humans were frighteningly good at, fighting. "All ships, this is the Indomitable," he broadcast to the fleet gathering around his dreadnought. "Execute Ghost Protocol and follow us out. Stay in formation. When we decloak, make it spectacular." 3,000 ships began moving through the nebula, their stealth systems making them nearly invisible. They moved like ghosts through the purple-blue clouds. Heading toward the border, where the Velthara Armada waited, Ambassador Ji Woo stood before the Concordat assembly. Every camera in the galaxy focused on her. Imperator Qualvex sat on his throne, looking pleased with himself. Counselor Dren floated nearby, fresh from his victory over Station Freedom. "The human ambassador wishes to make a statement," Qualvex announced. "We hope it is an acceptance of our generous terms." Ji Woo looked directly at the cameras. When she spoke, her voice was clear and unwavering. "For 47 years, humanity has sought friendship among the stars. We offered cooperation. We asked only for the dignity of equals. You answered with demands, with threats, with chains." She paused. "Today, you murdered 200 human crew members whose only crime was defending their home. You call it enforcement. We call it murder. Qualvex's expression darkened. Ambassador, I suggest you choose your next words carefully. I choose them very carefully, Imperator. Here are my words. Humanity does not kneel. Not to you. Not to anyone. Not ever. The chamber erupted in chaos. Species shouted. Some in outrage, others in shock. Qualvex rose from his throne, his 4 eyes blazing. Then you have chosen extinction, he declared. Counselor Dren, you are authorized to pacify human space by any means necessary. With pleasure, Imperator, Dren replied. Ji Wu turned and walked out of the chamber. Behind her, the galaxy's oldest and most powerful empire mobilized for war. And ahead of her, somewhere in the darkness of space, humanity's secret fleet was about to announce itself to the universe. The countdown was over. The war had begun. And in the Kepler Veil, 3,000 ships dropped their stealth systems simultaneously. On every sensor screen in the Velthara Armada, human vessels appeared like stars being born. Destroyers, cruisers, carriers, and at the front, the massive form of the Indomitable, bristling with weapons the Concordat had never seen before. Counselor Dren stared at his tactical display in disbelief. Where there should have been scattered remnants of a defeated species, there was a fleet. A real fleet. Thousands of ships. Impossible, he whispered. Captain Tay Min opened a channel to the Velthara Armada. His voice was calm, almost conversational. Counselor Dren, this is Captain Tay Min of the human warship Indomitable. You wanted to see our military? Here we are. You wanted to teach us our place? Come and try. We'll be waiting. The Indomitable's weapons came online, and 3,000 ships moved forward as one. Counselor, Dren's tactical officer, was the first to break the stunned silence. Sir, we're reading 3,217 distinct contacts. All human. All combat vessels. Dren couldn't tear his eyes from the display. Ships were still appearing as they dropped stealth systems. The humans had hidden an entire fleet in the Kepler Veil, right under the Concordat's sensors. For months, maybe years. Impossible, he said again. Our intelligence said they had barely 200 operational ships. Our intelligence was wrong, sir. Dren's mind raced. 3,000 ships against his 400. But the numbers were deceptive. His vessels were Velthara warships, built with technology refined over millennia. The humans had been in space for barely a century. Their ships had to be inferior. Had to be. All ships assume attack formation Beta 7, he ordered. Heavy units to the front. We'll crush their vanguard, and the rest will scatter. The Velthara Armada shifted smoothly into position, their movements precise and coordinated. It was a formation that had won 1,000 battles across Concordat history. Ship-to-ship combat in organized lines, with the heavier vessels trading fire until one side broke. Captain Tay Min watched the Velthara formation take shape and almost smiled. They're doing exactly what Admiral Hai Jin predicted. Traditional formation. Heavy ships forward. His tactical officer, Lieutenant Yunji, studied the enemy disposition. They expect us to meet them head-on. A battle of firepower. Then let's not do that, Tay Min said. He activated the fleet channel. All ships, execute pattern Wolf Strike 3. Carrier groups, launch all fighters. Destroyer squadrons, scatter formation. Heavy units, hold position and look threatening. The human fleet dissolved like smoke. One moment there was a coherent formation. The next, ships were moving in dozens of different directions, accelerating hard, breaking into small groups. The carriers launched waves of fighters that swung forward in clouds. On the Velthara flagship, Dren watched in confusion. What are they doing? This isn't a formation. It's chaos. Sir, I think that's the point. The first human fighters reached the Velthara formation. Small, agile craft that wove between the larger ships, launching missiles and strafing runs. Velthara point defenses opened up, shooting down most of the attackers, but there were so many of them. And they didn't fight like any Concordat pilots. They came from impossible angles, used their own destroyed companions as cover, rammed shield generators when their weapons ran dry. These pilots fight like madmen, Dren's tactical officer reported. They're taking casualties they can't afford. But the fighters were just the opening move. While the Velthara focused on the fighter swarm, human destroyer squadrons hit the flanks of the formation. Fast ships that appeared suddenly from the nebula's edge fired concentrated barrages and vanished back into the stellar fog before return fire could find them. Ghost contacts appearing and disappearing across the formation, the sensor officer called out. We can't track them. They're using the nebula to mask their movements. Dren felt the first stirrings of concern. His formation was designed for traditional combat. Stand-up fights between organized fleets. The humans weren't giving him that. They were everywhere and nowhere, hitting and running, using tactics that seemed more like piracy than proper military doctrine. All ships, pursue the destroyer squadrons. Run them down. The Velthara fleet began to fragment as individual ships chased human raiders into the nebula. Exactly what Tae Min had been waiting for. Now, he ordered, heavy units, full attack. Hit them while they're scattered. The Indomitable and the other human capital ships that had been holding position suddenly surged forward. They'd been hiding in plain sight, their ghost protocol systems making them look like debris or inactive hulks on Velthara sensors. Now they revealed themselves as massive warships with weapons already charging. The Indomitable's main batteries opened fire. Chief Engineer Nari's innovations showed their worth immediately. Human missiles didn't just fly straight at targets. They jinked and wove, communicated with each other, concentrated on weak points in enemy shields. When Velthara point defenses shot one down, its companions adjusted their approaches in real time. Their missiles are using artificial intelligence, the Velthara sensor officer reported in shock. They're learning from each attack run. Dren's ship shook as human fire found it. Return fire. All batteries. The battle became a savage melee. Velthara ships tried to reform their lines, but human forces were inside their formation now, preventing organized responses. It was fighting in a knife-fight range, where the Velthara advantages in shields and armor mattered less than speed and tactics. Commander Sang-woo led the carrier wing Dragon's Fury into the heart of the fighting. His ship launched wave after wave of fighters and bombers, coordinating strikes with nearby destroyers. Where the Velthara expected predictable attack patterns, they got synchronized chaos. Human forces that seemed scattered would suddenly concentrate overwhelming firepower on a single target, then disperse before the enemy could respond. Target that battleship, Sang-woo ordered, highlighting a Velthara heavy unit on the tactical display. All fighters, mark it. Destroyers, prepare to follow up. Hundreds of human fighters swarmed the battleship, their attacks coordinated down to the second. They targeted the same shield section repeatedly, weakening it. The moment the shield collapsed, 3 human destroyers appeared from the nebula and hammered the exposed hull with everything they had. The battleship died in seconds. Specialist Dong-ha fought his own battle from a human command ship. His cyber warfare team had infiltrated Velthara communication networks, injecting false orders and jamming coordination signals. Enemy ships suddenly found themselves out of position, receiving contradictory commands, unable to coordinate their defenses. I've got access to their tactical net, Dong-ha reported, feeding them false sensor data now. They think there are human ships in sectors that are actually empty. The psychological impact was devastating. Velthara commanders found themselves fighting ghosts, shooting at targets that didn't exist while real threats approached from unexpected directions. But the Velthara were not helpless. They were an empire that had dominated the galaxy for 6,000 years for good reasons. Their ships were tough, their crews were trained, and they were beginning to adapt. The humans used the nebula for cover, one Velthara captain reported. Deny them that advantage. All ships pull back to clear space, force them to fight in the open. The Velthara fleet began a fighting retreat, pulling away from the nebula's edge. Some human ships pursued too aggressively and paid for it. In open space, without the stellar fog to hide in, Velthara sensors could track them properly. Several human destroyers were destroyed in quick succession. Captain Tai Min saw the danger. They're trying to draw us out. All ships maintain position near the nebula. Don't overextend. But Counselor Dren had committed his forces now, and he'd brought reinforcements. Ships from the main armada began arriving, fresh and undamaged. The tactical situation was shifting. On the Indomitable, Tai Min studied the updated battle display. We've bloodied them, but they still outnumber us. And they're learning. Time for the trap. He opened a channel to Admiral Haijin. Admiral, we need the reserve forces. Now. Back at Fleet Command on Earth, Haijin had been watching the battle through multiple data feeds. She'd seen human ships fighting with desperate courage, seen tactics working better than she'd dared hope, seen the Velthara adapting faster than she'd feared. Send the signal, she ordered. Release the reserves. From positions throughout the star system, hidden human forces revealed themselves. Ships that had been playing dead. Stations that had seemed abandoned. Minefields that had been dormant. All of it activated simultaneously. The Velthara forces that Dren had committed found themselves suddenly surrounded. The human ships they'd been fighting weren't fleeing. They'd been herding the enemy into a killing zone. Trap. Dren's tactical officer shouted. We're surrounded. Minefields detonated in carefully timed sequences, channeling Velthara ships into narrow corridors where human heavy weapons waited. Stations that had seemed like easy targets revealed hidden weapons batteries. And from the deeper parts of the nebula, a second wave of human fleet emerged. The Indomitable led the charge directly at Dren's flagship. The two massive ships traded fire at point-blank range, their shields flaring brilliant white as plasma bolts and missiles hammered into each other. On the Indomitable's bridge, damage reports were coming in from multiple sections. Forward shields at 40%. Hull breach on deck 7. Engineering reports, plasma conduits overloading. Redirect power from everything non-essential, Tagman ordered. I want every weapon we have firing at that flagship. The same scene was playing out across the battlefield. Human ships were taking terrible damage, but they wouldn't break. Crew members fought fires. Engineers rerouted power from damaged systems. Medics treated wounded while weapons officers kept firing. A human destroyer lost half its hull to a Velthara battleship's broadside, but used its remaining maneuvering thrusters to ram the larger ship. Both vessels dying in a massive explosion. A carrier with its flight deck destroyed turned itself into a missile battery, expending every weapon it had before Velthara fire finally silenced it. Everywhere, human forces were paying a brutal price. But they were making the Velthara pay more. Counselor Dren watched his armada being torn apart and finally understood. The humans didn't care about casualties. They cared about winning. They'd turned their ships into weapons, their crews into ammunition. They fought with a desperation and ferocity that the Concordat's civilized warfare had never prepared him for. All ships retreat, he ordered. Emergency jump, anywhere. Just get out of this system. But the human forces had planned for that too. The mines, the positioning, everything had been designed to cut off escape routes. Velthara ships that tried to jump found their hyperspace engines. Disrupted by human jamming fields, the Indomitable's weapons finally overwhelmed Dren's flagship shields. Missiles and plasma fire tore into the hull. Secondary explosions rippled across the vessel. Abandon ship, Dren ordered. All hands to the escape pods. The flagship died slowly, its reactor going critical. Dren's escape pod launched just before the final explosion. Along with dozens of others carrying his surviving crew, Captain Tae-min watched the enemy flagship break apart. Around him, the Velthara armada was in full retreat. Those ships that could jump were escaping. Those that couldn't were surrendering. "Cease fire," Tae-min ordered. "Recover enemy survivors, especially escape pods from the flagship." The Battle of the Kepler Vale was over. The stellar fog was filled with debris from both fleets. Human losses had been severe. 700 ships destroyed. Thousands of crew members dead. But the Velthara had lost worse. Over half their armada was gone. And most importantly, Counselor Dren was in human custody, along with what remained of his command staff. The first time in 600 years that a Velthara military leader had been captured alive, that Admiral Hai-Jin stood before the cameras, broadcasting to every Concordat world. Behind her, through the viewport, the captured Velthara flagship could be seen, battered but intact. "For 47 years, we sought peace," she said. "You answered with arrogance. You demanded submission. You struck first. Now you've learned what your empire forgot." She paused, letting her words carry across the galaxy. "Humanity is not your subject. We are your equals, or your betters. The choice of what comes next is yours." The Concordat Council Chamber had never been so quiet. Delegates from 1,000 species sat in stunned silence as the footage played on the central display. The Battle of the Kepler Vale, recorded from multiple angles by both human and Velthara ships. The images spoke for themselves. The impossible human fleet, the desperate fighting, the Velthara armada broken and scattered. Imperator Corvex sat on his throne, looking older than his 6 centuries. His chrome-like skin seemed duller somehow, as if the defeat had leached the shine from it. Around him, other Velthara officials whispered urgently, their confident arrogance replaced by something humans recognized. Immediately, Fear. Ambassador Ji Woo stood at the speaker's podium, the same place where she'd been dismissed and patronized dozens of times before. But today, the galaxy listened when she spoke. "The Velthara Empire demanded our surrender," she said quietly. "They said we were too young, too primitive, too dangerous to have our own military. They promised protection. Instead, they murdered 200 of my people at Station Freedom. They started this war." She paused, letting that sink in. "Humanity finished it." In the Velthara section, a junior official stood up. "The Empire has guided the galaxy for 6,000 years. One battle doesn't change that. We have resources you can't imagine, fleets you haven't seen. This rebellion will be crushed." Before Ji Woo could respond, another delegate stood. This one was from the Kelvin Confederation, a mid-tier species that had been part of the Concordat for 2,000 years. "Will it?" the Kelvin asked. "Because I watched that battle footage very carefully. The humans didn't win through luck. They won through better tactics, better technology, and better planning. They built an entire fleet in secret while pretending to surrender. They fought with weapons and strategies the Velthara couldn't counter. What makes you think the next battle will be different?" More delegates were standing now. Species that had stayed quiet for centuries were finding their voices. "The Velthara have been demanding more tribute from all of us," said a representative from the Taurine worlds. More resources, more technology, more control. They told us it was for our own good, for the stability of the Concordat. But maybe it was just for their own power. We've followed Velthara leadership for so long, added a delegate from the chorus, a species of telepathic beings. We never questioned it. But the humans questioned it. And when the Velthara tried to force them to comply, the humans said no. Maybe we should start saying no too. Imperator Qualvex rose from his throne, and the chamber fell silent again. This is treason. Rebellion against the natural order. The humans must be made an example of, or the entire Concordat will collapse into chaos. The Concordat is already collapsing, He Wu said softly. You just didn't notice because you were too busy giving orders and expecting obedience. But empires built on forced submission don't last. They crumble the moment someone has the courage to say no. She looked around the chamber at the assembled species. Humanity is proposing something different. Not a Concordat where the eldest species rule and the youngest obey. A true alliance. A federation of equals, where every species has a voice. Where decisions are made together, not dictated from above. Impossible, Qualvex said. There must be order, leadership. Someone must guide. Then let leadership be earned, not assumed, Ji Wu interrupted. Let species prove their wisdom through actions, not claim it through age. The Velthara have 6,000 years of history. Humanity has barely a century in space. But we just beat your finest fleet. Maybe age isn't the only measure of capability. The chamber erupted in discussion. Some species supported Ji Wu's proposal. Others condemned it. A few simply looked terrified at the idea of change. But nobody was dismissing the humans anymore. You couldn't dismiss a species that had just done the impossible. Far from the political theater, in a secure detention facility on a human orbital station, Counselor Dren sat in a cell that was comfortable, but definitely a cell. He'd expected torture, interrogation, the brutal treatment that the Concordat would have given a captured enemy commander. Instead, he got Lieutenant Yunji, a young human woman who brought him meals and asked if he needed anything. She was professional, courteous, and completely genuine in her concern for his well-being. Why are you treating me like this? Dren asked one day. I destroyed your station, killed your people. Why show me kindness? Yunji considered the question. Because that's what civilized beings do. You're a prisoner of war, not a criminal. The Geneva Conventions require humane treatment of prisoners. The what conventions? Ancient human agreements about warfare. Rules we made to limit suffering, even in conflict. One of those rules is that prisoners must be treated with dignity. She smiled slightly. Besides, killing you would be easy. Changing your mind is harder. We're hoping for the harder option. Over the following weeks, Dren talked with Yunji and other humans who visited him. He learned about their history, their wars, the terrible things they'd done to each other over millennia of conflict, and the slow, painful process of learning to do better. Your species fought each other? He asked in disbelief. You went to war against your own kind? For thousands of years, Yunji confirmed. Over territory, resources, ideology, religion. Sometimes just because we hated each other. We nearly destroyed ourselves more than once. Then how can you lecture the Velthara about peace? You're warriors, killers. Yes, Yunji agreed. But we learned. Every war taught us something. Every conflict showed us better ways to resolve disputes. It took a long time and cost millions of lives, but eventually we figured out that cooperation beats conquest. That diversity makes us stronger, not weaker. That the strong have a duty to protect the weak, not exploit them. She leaned forward. The Velthara have been strong for so long that you forgot those lessons. You forgot what it's like to struggle, to be vulnerable, to need others as equals rather than subjects. Maybe losing to us will help you remember.